Hello and welcome to the New York Empire Podcast. I'm Dan Hilton. He's Matt Pippin Auletta, and Week 5 is in the books. The UFA season is chugging along. Yes, Chicago still only played once, but that's not the Empire's problem because they have 6 games under their belt. But before, Matt, we get to anything, there is obviously Ultimate that does go on outside of the UFA, especially where it does have a big storyline in the coming season, which is that the college kids are returning and they will be back. So college nationals happen over the weekend. So congratulations to the British Columbia team who won the women's division. And then Taj Murti, New York Empire player who's played 2 games. He played 2 games last season and he is on the roster for this year. He won the men's college championship with Carlton Cutt. So Carlton Cutt had not won since 2017, and Taj Murti, the freshman, shows up and they win it again. So congratulations to Taj and everybody involved. Now, of course, as people probably know listening to the show, you and I went to Hofstra, and we really can speak, I think, at regionals. I mean, it was a good time. We showed up, right? We got our
I never even made regionals in college. No, I only coaching the Hofstra women did we make regionals. That's it.
yeah.
I got nothing to add.
No, yeah, we didn't sniff nationals. You're allowed to say it during practice, and I think for at least for us, you probably did the same thing when you were playing. It was just we'll see you in Sarasota was always what you used to say, and now of course it's in different places, but it was always see you in Sarasota. But yeah, so that's the men's college championship. That's in the book, so that means that the college kids are back in the league, and so that does do a bunch of different things for a bunch of different teams, including I think most importantly the Summit, who now returned Tobias Brooks from Colorado Mama Bird, who came up as runners up. So that's a big one. But there are others around the league, including again Taj Murti and Ethan Lehman, who we'll talk about in the preview, who will be making his UFA debut this week. But first, we're going to go backwards. The Empire beat the Philadelphia Phoenix 17-16 this past weekend, and that was actually just Friday night. And the only stat that jumps out, because I actually want to talk more about individuals, because in a game that was decided by such margins with some mistakes and then some clean play at different times, 9 of 10 on Hucks for the Empire. They only allowed the Philadelphia Phoenix 4 of 7 on their Hucks. That was the one number that really jumped out to me. But aside from that, this game was decided by individuals and along the margins. And I didn't really find like any of the other stats were notable to talk about because there weren't really that many turnovers. It was 12-14, so a +2 for the Empire. But other than that, like completions were where you'd kind of expect them to be. And it really was just a matter of, who was going to make less mistakes and who was going to make some big plays, especially at the end of quarters.
Yeah, there were a few drops here and there from both teams. It got a little hairy at times. The ending was obviously a little wild the last 2 minutes, but in general, it was a pretty good game. I thought both teams played well. There were, the mistakes or the forced mistakes you would expect by two decent teams playing against each other, but no, I didn't really have any negative takeaways from either side aside from that last 2 wacky minutes. No, it was a clean game. Empire obviously very fortunate to have Antoine Davis back. He had a massive impact on the game, I thought. A few clutch blocks and just kind of seemed like he was moving well. I guess his back is feeling a lot better.
Yeah, let's start talking about the defensive side of the ball for the Empire. Some notable performances. Antoine Davis was second on the team with a +5. He had to defend Scott Heyman, who still statistically had a huge day. 7 assists and a goal, but he did force Scott Heyman to have to work. And I think that was important for limiting. We talked about the Hucks for the Phoenix because Scott can both receive them and he can deliver them, but he made Scott work for all of those things. I think it did add up as the game went on. So a lot of credit to Antoine there, as well as he only played 12 total points, as you mentioned, coming back from that injury. But in those 12 points, had 2 goals, 3 blocks. He was just 3 for 3 on his completions. He knocked the disc down to end the third, and he grabbed the clincher at the buzzer at the end. And when we talk about the big moments, that's what this game was decided by. It was an early break in the first quarter by the Empire. That winds up being the difference in the game, or all those other little moments, as you mentioned. Yes, turnovers, they could have been decided. But another big one, too, the other, we'll say, big defense that happened in that game was Sam Jonas. 1 assist, 3 blocks for him, a +4. Only 41 total yards, 8 of 8 on his completions. But defensively, he made the important D at 16 all on the Huck to Hannah. And the Empire D-line came down with 46 seconds left to take the 17-16 lead. They also seemed to kind of throw at him, and he was able to deal with it. So Sam Jonas, probably the best game from him in an Empire uniform so far. And he is still such kind of an X factor. And I know it's year 2 for him with the Empire, but because we don't see him playing high-level club, I feel like he's not spoken about in the same way as the other players are. And a lot of people who may just watch club and then peek an eye at the UFA, again, they don't really know who Sam Jonas is. But Sam Jonas is in that, I would say, top 25 percentile of athletes on a UFA field, if not higher, maybe top 10%. And Sam Jonas was able to show up that against, again, a Philly team that you kind of have to a point, out athletic them. That's kind of how you beat Philadelphia. And the Empire were, with a lot of big bodies, able to do that, because the other ones I'll name is Ryan Dross. We know Ryan Dross coming out of semi-retirement, playing 9 D points and 2 O points. Gavin May made his Empire debut playing 3 D points and also coming back from a long ACL injury out. So both he and Twan together only played 15 total points. And then Sam Alston had a big D in the first quarter that led to a break. And Sam Alston, a player that I wasn't sure where he'd be in the 20, but it seems like as this season has gone on, he's kind of been, now we really start to put, not in permanent marker, but we do say, hey, Sam Alston, there are other players who are not going to make the 20 over you, and you're going to be in the 20 consistently because you've earned it on both his pulls for that second D line, as well as the D that he plays on. He plays bigger than he is height wise. He can guard the big bodies, and he's quick enough to guard guys that are a little bit faster than him. But yeah, Sam Alston is all around just a really good defender for the Empire this year.
Yeah. In general, I thought both teams played good defense. I don't even know. I mean, the block by Jonas at the end was, it didn't even look like he was going to get there, but I didn't watch the game live, so I knew the final score. And that hook goes up, and I'm just thinking, like, is this going to get dropped? Like, what is happening here? Like, this looks like it's a gimme. And then Hannah doesn't go up timely, and just the big swooping block, and it's just like, oh, that was a really nice play right when they needed it the most. Yeah, I just felt like both teams applied a lot of pressure. A lot of those red zone possessions by both of those teams, they didn't get solved with easy open throws to space often. After going side to side, just like working it, it was a lot of hammers over the top. Both teams kind of kept hitting some of the same spaces, and then also just like some blades, like right through the middle. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of where the openings were, and both teams were executing. Just the defensive pressure. I mean, they were right on each other, both teams, like glue for a while in the middle of the game.
Yeah, this is now the third game in a row we give compliments to both the Empire and I think the Phoenix as well. They fall to 3-1, but I would not be crazy to see both of these two teams be the other two teams in the East Division, because I thought to that point that even though the Empire beat Montreal now 3 games ago, they didn't play their best, and Montreal also struggled in that game. But this was a 17-16 game, so not a ton of scoring, but I think both teams, to your point, played at a high level. And I think that's what the Empire want to do down the stretch here. They want to play at a high level, and if they can continue to do this, continue to do what they did last week in both those games, even though they were losses, they will win games, and the wins will be enough, and they'll make the postseason, and you see what happens from there.
Yeah.
And to that point, even in this game against Philadelphia, like Sean Mott had to work. Marquez Brownlee made him work. And there were also times when it wasn't Brownlee on Mott, but in the times that it was Mott v. Brownlee, he made him work, which is what you need to do. Then Sam Grossberg, the teenage phenom, an absolute all-time layout. That thing trailing away. You could see it trailing away, which means that on the field, this is trailing away even at a sharper angle than you could, right? If the camera's picking it up from that overhead broadcast, that means that thing is really spiraling, and an all-time layout, just absurd from Sam Grossberg. But even he did have to work. I mean, the kid shows insane points for a teenager. That's absurd. And then his older brother, Adam Grossberg, who's still a young player, he did struggle on that one with 4 turnovers. Like, he still made highlight plays, but he did struggle with 4 turnovers. And to your point, that was the pressure that the Empire were applying. And I think that when they won their championships, we talk a lot about the offense, which we're about to talk about the Empire offense, but it came down to the defense. Like, defense won the Empire the championships they did. And the consistent ability to, even when players are good enough, like Adam Grossberg and the other stars of the league, even when whoever it is, Jordan Kerr, like, those guys are going to make plays. They're good players. But if you can force them to also make turnovers with the big plays that they're making over the course of the 48-minute game, you are going to win some matchups, or you are going to win it just enough, or get just the margins that you need to get the victory.
Yeah. You touched on it just for a brief second, and massive shout out to the Empire offense, because that is not their usual just here's our 7 or even our 8 or even our 9. They were kind of picking and choosing. We actually got to see the Max Shepard, John Randolph together. Jack was out there, a gritty performance, but I think it was clear to me, knowing that he's dealing with a hamstring issue, that he was still very effective, but he was not the same like speedster in a lot of space. He was more picking and choosing and just kind of around the disc a little more. And he played a really smart game because people fear Jack Williams, so they are worried about him taking off or eating up all this space or doing all these things. And instead, it just looked like he kind of kept it all kind of close, kind of concise, and just did a lot of damage around the disc. And it was an impressive performance, and definitely different than some of his other games. But what they needed, I mean, no SRB, so who's been just like a staple of the offense and the consistency. So for the offense to go out there and play, I won't say mistake free. There were a few drops, there were a few throwaways, but and Calvin Brown's going to shoot a few, so that it's okay. Like, somebody's going to have a few turns in a game. Like, I don't even really fault them for most of those. One of the Hucks probably could have reeled in. There was already some defenders in the space, but in general, the whole offense, mix and match different things. They played really well together. They had the game in hand. And if the last like minute or two they just didn't have one or two mistakes, the bobble drop or the whatever, they probably just win that game a little more comfortably by like a 1 or 2 goal margin, instead of just like down to the wire. Oh, are they going to lose? Or, well, not, I guess not lose, but like blocking a buzzer beater wasn't really in the cards a minute or two before that. So I just think the offense played really well. They moved the disc well, they moved it smart, and they functioned really well without having just like their unit be all there.
Well, yeah, Jack is still questionable this Sunday against Toronto. So that tells you the shape that he was in last Friday, that even that supportive role, he was just 2 yards shy of 400 total yards, and he was 39 of 39 on his completion. So, right, that is very supportive. Make the good decisions, make the safe throws. And yeah, I would love to be banged up and throw almost 400 total yards in a game and almost have
yeah
40 completions. That sounds pretty awful to me. Yacht, I thought, was steady again. 4 goals and an assist for him, a +4, 1 turn, 400 plus receiving yards, also won the buzzer beater at the end of the first quarter. And that was something we had said the last 2 seasons. If the Empire are going to have a chance, Yacht's going to have to win buzzer beaters. Like, that is just a fact of the matter, because there is especially at the highest levels, the elite teams against the elite teams, it's all decided by +1, +2, and those buzzer beaters do matter. You need to at least win even half of those, or even if you get one of the 4 of them, you have to win some of them. And Yacht did that. And LeBar continued his bounce back, I thought, too. 2 goals, 2 assists, a +3, just 1 turn, some nice catches. And actually, his 1 turn came late in the game as well, as it was Shapiro. I don't know if they gave a turn to LeBar on that. It was a tough throw. It's kind of behind him, so I don't really discredit. It might have been a drop for Shapiro, but I don't really put that on him as much as I do. I think LeBar, that wasn't the best.
That was tough. It had a lot of zip to it, and I think just when Shapiro was running, I feel like at the very instant it was arriving near his hand, he needed to like jump or like be more steady, and he had to reach, and his feet weren't set, and it just like kind of sets the whole thing off, where you just kind of drop it, and you're like, oh no, what happened?
But if I'm Matt LeBar, I'm really hoping that it's Philly in the postseason, because both in the preseason when he was mic'd up, and now here in this one, Matt LeBar does play well against Philadelphia. And I think it also helps that he does, because of the Devil program and New Jersey Ultimate, he does know a lot of those guys. And I think there's a calmness that comes with Matt LeBar when he plays against Philly, because again, it's just when you play against your friends, there is, as much as it's as serious as it could be, this is a must-win game for the Empire. And as much when it was, I think there was still something that LeBar was a bit more at ease against the players that he knows. And then the 2 guys that we were kind of talking about that put up without Saul, pretty incredible stat lines here. Brown with 3 goals, 4 assists, a +3, 620 total throwing yards, I should say, almost 800 total yards, so 795. Again, those are Elliot Chartok numbers when Elliot was really just able to throw those things out. 3 hockey assists as well. He did have the 4 turns, as you mentioned, but he did all that in 19 points played. So really not much. Again, this game was a very slow and plodding game, and that means that Calvin Brown is asked to do a lot. And then John Randolph, the same thing. That was my player of the game. Just really good stuff from John Randolph. 48 of 48 on his completions, 629 total yards, 2 goals, 4 assists, and 1 block for a +7, which led the team. But when we say, talking about those 629 total yards, we're not talking about all of the work that he does to set up his cuts. Because I don't know how many players in the modern game set up their cuts as well as John Randolph does. Like, you watch him 2 throws before he's about to receive the disc, and he is just moving and chugging. And they don't put those stats on the stat sheet about, the setting up cut yards or whatever like that. That's not a thing. But he churns so much yardage out for everybody and creates so much space. My question for you now is, yes, with Shepard back on offense as well for this game, moving forward for Anthony Nunez and Matt Cat Stevens, I don't know how you take John Randolph now off of that O line. And I would think, again, when we talk about Sam Jonas, and we'll see where Ethan Lehman fits into all of this, you might be able to kind of make up for what John Randolph does give you on that counterattack on the D line to keep him on O. But but if you need to address, it's kind of like, yes, John Randolph, you'd love to have him on both sides of the disc every point. But going forward, I'm not sure where the Empire would like that. It's a good problem to have, but it's also a pretty rough one because I think you're losing something. Either your D line lose something by not having him, and you see this O line, he makes them their best version, I think, this season. So I'd love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I think you need to leave John Randolph on offense. I think he kind of makes it all click. He's shown to already have very good chemistry with Calvin Brown, and he's just kind of like this engine and this driving force that they need. And he has an ability to go deep. He has an ability to throw dangerous throws. When he is getting covered by like a top-notch defender, or he's just like kind of smothered for a few seconds, he keeps moving and he keeps moving and he keeps moving and he changes directions and he just keeps going. And then he's very open, or, he's open enough in those tight windows where some other people aren't getting separation. He's just doing a little bit of everything, and he's got too much of an engine. And I think he needs to stay out there. The tricky part then is when everybody's available, like, where do you sacrifice? I mean, maybe Oliver Chartok goes to defense, because he's a player who has a lot of reps on O and D over the last few seasons.
Oh, we went actually. I'll interject.
Yeah.
We had the option to put Matt LaBar there. Like, we had forgotten that, and then you and I talked about that post off air. I think Matt LaBar, because of the job that he does on some of the best athletes, I think it makes more sense probably to move Matt LaBar back to that side of the disc.
Yeah. I watched Max Shepard this game with, he statistically he didn't do anything, eye popping, but I was watching a lot of the play, and he was very open a lot on a lot of undercuts, but all of a sudden other people would kind of get in the way, or the mark would shift. Just a lot of different situations where, he could have easily had a game where he doubled the amount of catches and completions he had. It just kind of didn't break his way a lot. But I thought he was moving really well. He was attacking space and finding good avenues. It just kind of didn't happen for him this week. But yeah, I still think that maybe the best option for this offense would be having Shepard and Randolph playing together. I do think that Shepard was in good space. He just didn't get utilized a ton during the game.
I think the offense will dictate the defense and how they line up. I think to that point, yeah, it's a good thing the Empire have 9 to 10, and we've seen a lot of teams that feel confident to say that. And I think most teams around the league, and a credit to Daryl Stanley in DC, they were really the first ones now going on like 3-4 years ago who said, hey, we don't. I would ask pregame, Daryl, do you have like a 7 and like a sub or whatever? And he's like, no. I'm going to give you 9 or 10 names. And that's not to confuse you, but that's to say, like, we're going to consistently, there might be 9 or 10 guys who all get double-digit O points this game, and that's something you should expect. And now most teams around the league do that, and that is something that, whether it's in vogue or not, and I don't know if that's always the best thing, right? I think sometimes there are teams that if you just kind of went with your 7 best O-line and figured all those things out and have everybody know exactly where everyone's going to be, that'll pay dividends. But also, over the course of a regular season, guys are in, guys are out, and you do know you're going to miss 2 or 3 games from this guy and that guy and that guy and that guy. And so to make sure that you have everybody kind of ready, you also can lose guys in the postseason as well. So you really never know. To have 10 guys on offense isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I don't know. I think going back to even your days, you say, hey, we know when all healthy, these are our 7. And I think for the Empire, and again, not just the Empire, most teams around the league, when they say everybody's healthy, I don't think most teams know who their 7 are on their O-lines when everybody is fit. And I think it comes down to, hey, when push came to shove, we're on offense with 25 seconds left. But even then, now you're talking about throwing your bigs out there. So I guess you're saying, hey, like we have 2:30 in the game. We need to score this O-line point. I think that's probably a safer way to say that. 2:30 left in the game. Who are our 7? That's our kill line or whatever it is. Or my question for you is everything now you think in this game so situational? Where it's like, oh, we're this much time on the clock, or this is this point in the game, or we just ran this guy on D line, so therefore it's going to be a rotation no matter what, right? John Randolph just played 2 D points because we had to come back in the game. Now we're not going to throw him on a third point for O-line. So even though you'd love to have him in that position, you substitute him out anyway. So is everything just situational now?
Well, I watched John Randolph Peloton bike as hard as humanly possible for about an hour once. I was right behind him in the studio, and he ignored all the instructor's cues and just biked as hard as he could for an hour. So if somebody could play a few extra points in a row, it might be him. It was wild, but
That's what I call him, Johnny Ultimate, Meat Pistons,
yeah, yeah,
the
it was crazy.
the Prince of the Peloton. I mean, there's
Yeah,
another one. I
I
got
don't know, but
a
yeah.
lot.
But no, I mean, yeah, it is situational. I mean, it kind of depends. I mean, at a certain point in the game, you got to see who's playing well too. If like
Hmm.
2 minutes and 30 seconds left, but if it's a little earlier in the game, it's a tough call because you know they do like to go a little big. They have Shapiro; it's a big body. But well, the classic "I dropped my AirPod once" a show. There it goes. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's always an interesting puzzle to figure out. I talked about that in the preseason. Interesting to see how all the pieces will fit together. And yeah, they have the skill and the talent. It's just, who fits where and when. That's the tricky part. I don't know.
Empire fans, it's that time of year again. The UFA season is here, and New York is offering season ticket packages at watchufa.com/empire. Packages include your general admission pass with merch perks and free unlimited popcorn, a disc, and a family pack so you can bring the whole household. Not to mention, all season ticket passes include admission to all our away games as well. Just show your pass at the front gate.
Well, we'll see what the Empire can do on Sunday because it's a really interesting week now coming up for the East Division. DC is on the road against Toronto on Friday and then Montreal on Saturday. And that could be, for Toronto and Montreal, their way back. And for DC, that could be their way having to make up a lot of ground. And I think, if anything, I know that the Empire also have Toronto on Sunday, but the DC road trip, the Empire by Sunday should kind of know, hey, are we in a better spot than we were? Or are we also going to have to now fight for our lives? Because then it's Empire at Breeze on June the 6th, as the Empire and Breeze now face off twice in the Empire's next 4 games. So you
Yeah.
kind of start doing that stuff. And with Philly continuing to play the way they are and having that early tiebreaker over DC, we'll have to see what happens in the return game. But now with the Phoenix already, and they also, that being the Phoenix, host an 0-4 Carolina Flyers, where in every other year that I've considered this, you'd say the Raleigh or the Carolina Flyers against the Philadelphia Phoenix. Well, the Phoenix aren't going to be able to get over the hump, even though they're going to fight hard and push into the very end. But if you're the Phoenix at 3-1, don't look at the records, 0-4 Carolina Flyers, but they have not been good enough. And yes, they have also played the Atlanta Hustle twice, or 3 times, however many times, and they've also had to play the Growlers. So the combined teams against them have only lost 2 games. So the Flyers, we may not entirely know who they are. That is also the team that gets a bunch of college kids back every single season. So I don't know exactly who they're getting back, but that's also a team that reinforces. Maybe the college kids won't be ready 1 week later, but they also are teenagers and young 20-somethings. So I think they'll be fine with a little bit of rest and ice or whatever. And then looking ahead then to the Empire on the road at Toronto on Sunday, the 2 names that we haven't really talked about, but the one name that we have mentioned in passing, in the 20 for Toronto this week are Arvidas Karklins, who is going to moss somebody. And if you're Empire players, that's okay. Just win the game. Karklins is going to do that. Karklins has been one of the most exciting athletes to be entering in the league in quite some time. He's just really fun. And then Tom Blassman cannot stop throwing assists. He's really, really good with the disc in his hands and an assured presence. So Blassman and Karklins, 2 of the top 4, 5 players on Toronto Rush already. And then Mark Lloyd, he is back. Currently listed as active, and I don't know how old Mark Lloyd is, but I know that you and him are very much contemporaries at that point in the game. So Mark Lloyd, currently listed as active, has not played, I believe, since 2017. So awesome to see him doing it 8 years after the fact. And with the players that they have dressed or questionable, clearly Mark Lloyd still got it enough to make the 20. And so that is what we're seeing from Toronto. And then, as I mentioned, Ethan Lehman will be making his UFA debut this weekend, coming off a run at College Nationals for UMass Zoodisk. He is not undersized, but he definitely is a player that uses his speed and his quickness to his advantage. He is just a ball of energy, and I'm excited to see him likely on the D lines for the Empire. And the idea of him and Axel Agami Contreras putting some pressure as and because Brownlee is out for the weekend. So without Marcus Brownlee, maybe Lehman immediately comes in. And yes, obviously he's almost the opposite kind of handler defender, but he has the quickness to deal with handlers as well. So interesting to see where Lehman's going to factor into all this. But yeah, Toronto, their record is not good, but clearly you look at the 20 and you go, on paper, like, that's a really good Toronto team again.
Yeah, I want to come back to Gami Contreras and Marquez Brownlee with that double team turnover real quick, but I do want to say, love to see Mark Lloyd coming back playing. So you got old guy coming back in, and then you got, like you said, Lehman, a short guy, a little undersized. That was kind of my thing. I think he's shorter than me, but short guy, old guy. You got all the energies I want. I'm rooting for both of them.
You are not undersized. You are not undersized.
I'm 5'9", and when I was playing, I weighed like 100. Well, I still weigh. I weighed like between 140 and 145 pounds. I was typically the smallest person on the field almost all the time. Even when someone was shorter than me, they were 100% more stout than me. So
I refuse to look in the mirror and call myself undersized. That's my problem. This is a me
well,
thing.
that's a you thing. No, for this league with all these players, even a few years ago when everybody wasn't quite as big and quite as strong. No, I was definitely small. One time we had a locker room video for fun. Keegan was on a Facebook Live or something maybe, and he's like interviewing some people before one of our games, and he calls me over to stand next to Babbitt just to show what a difference there can be. And I mean, obviously Jeff is a bit different, but I look like a toddler next to him. So it's just, no, I was very small compared to most people. So I will root hard for both the undersized and the old.
Well,
I hope Mark Lloyd has a great game, but I also hope he loses horribly.
Of course, Toronto. Well, a little addendum to that too is that making already his debut for the Oakland Spiders this season, but now playing his second game like this weekend, Nathan Pryor, former DC Breeze player, played for them 2017, 18, 19, and he's not short, but he's only 5'10". So it's a center handler who's only 5'10". So
sounds tall. He sounds tall.
But Nathan Pryor I never felt like he played tall. I felt like he was more quick than he was, just the old.
I would agree with that. I would agree.
The old, what was it? What we would say I guess DC Lloyd Blake, the handler type that was Lloyd Blake, or my brain's not
Lloyd Blake was very tall and long. Yeah, that was a tough cover.
I don't think I'm going to beat that example. So there you go.
So speaking of long and tall, I actually want to get back to something from the game this weekend. With time getting close to expiring, we had that wacky minute and a half at the end. Empire get the disc back, and all they probably need to do is complete a few passes and ice the game. And it's on the sideline, and the Empire over the last few years were wonderful at putting a big body in to inbound a pass like that or get the disc off the sideline. And, the John Lithio, Yacht, Babbitt, whatever, and then you spread out the field and you get it off. Marquez is walking towards the disc as if he's going to pick it up, and then he does a fake out. And next thing you know, Axel Gami Contreras is picking up that disc, and he's double teamed. And he's not that big. Great player, but not that big. The time and situation management of that thing was a disaster. And then obviously it is a turnover. And that's why the ending gets even more wild in the next 20 seconds. And that's why Philly even has a shot at tying the game. Nice end of time block by Antoine Davis to notch another one. But just what are we doing? What are we doing? I was screaming at the screen, why? Why would he go pick that up? Why wouldn't somebody else call him off? Why wouldn't the coaches or other players be screaming in that situation? Why didn't somebody big pick that up? Or it did not make any sense. And that's not to discredit him. He's a great player, but situationally, terrible thing going on there. You could have iced the game easily. Also, the rest of the team, bad on them. Somebody could have just been straight down the sideline, dump it 25 yards the wrong way, just give him a straight shot back. And he didn't have that either, which is why he threw it downfield. At least he threw it the right direction. But it was just a bad. They could have blown the game. Basically, they could have ended up in overtime, and then they could have lost.
Well, what I'll say, not just about that moment, but I've been watching enough UFA around not only this year, but for many years now, and it does always kind of shock me that late game situations and pressurized situations, you can practice them all you want, but then when push comes to shove, there's a minute left to go, and it doesn't matter the amount of experience. Now, I think the top level experienced teams that have been together for a while, they really have that down to a letter. But whenever you change over 25% of your roster or whatever it is per season, it doesn't matter the names that we know. There just always seems to be something that gets tight and that doesn't make the right choices late. And again, we're talking about whether it's the Hustle or the Flyers or the Glory or the Breeze, whatever it is, like late game ultimate is always so tight. And I think it does have a lot to do with the fact that, again, a lot of these players still do, especially over their summers, they train for the club game. And then when it comes down to UFA and there's a clock that you have to worry about, I just think that still is something that the players, they can't simulate. And, if you only play 3 seasons in the UFA, you've only played 25 total games or something like that, right? If you're like a bit D-line player and you play 25 total games in 3 seasons, and yet how many hundreds of club games have they put under their belt, or high school games and college games or whatever? So I do think that the clock, as much as these players have been doing this now for years, the clock in late game situations still winds up being something that teams can practice all they want, but the composure at the end of games, again, this isn't just an Empire problem. This seems to be the players around the league. There's a tightness and something that a misunderstanding of that clock. And that's why I think at the end of the day, still, we are in the early permutations of the fact that at the end of buzzer situations, we still are getting the bailouts by the Antoine Davis, the Ben Yachts, the top level athletes at the buzzers. That's still what is happening. And my prediction for the next 10 years is that there's going to come a way that the league and teams kind of figure out there might be better ways to even get that into the end zone without, obviously 3 seconds or less is a different story. But if you've got 10 seconds or less, I think teams are really going to work through the next 5 to 10 seasons how to get that disc at the front cone in 10 seconds, as opposed to having to throw that up with 3 seconds as we do beside it. I think that's where we're going.
That's a great point, because the turn by Grossberg at the end, I mean, he just turned and ripped it, but there were still 7 or 8 seconds left. And he threw to, I think it was Hannah, I'm not sure, covered by
against the crowd,
by Davis and Yacht. And it's you probably could have completed one more throw or held the disc for 2 or 3 more seconds and seen where the rest of your teammates maybe ended up and thrown it away from the Giants, or just to space where maybe somebody wins a foot race instead. And to your point, that was probably clock mismanagement, because time is getting short, but 7 seconds is a long time to kind of let something develop for a better shot than they got.
The problem that Philly had was they didn't have Solomon Reshmaya Bailey to catch a hammer in the back corner. I mean, that's really the buzzer beating late game situation that all teams should try to employ. It's also good at doing that. So again, a reminder that it's on watchufa.tv on Sunday. It's Empire at Toronto, and then it's Empire at Breeze. So we will talk to you before any of that, before the Empire return home through the month of June. So I am going to hopefully impress you here, Matt, and all the listeners. If you're still listening to the Empire podcast, I know you're true Ultimate or even Empire sicko. So we started by talking about Carlton Cut. We started talking about tall players around the league. And so I'm going to bookend this show by mentioning a player that played 11 career games in the UFA. He played 3 games in 2014 for the Flamethrowers and 8 for the Flamethrowers in 2015. And when you say Carlton Cut, you say tall, and you say freaking good at Ultimate. There is
Can I guess?
Of course, there's one option though.
I'm probably gonna whiff on this big time, but
I'm not gonna whiff on this.
I'm thinking tall, maybe played Canner.
No, it's not Canner. It is a Callahan winner who played your generation.
Oh, Alex Nord.
Alex Nord.
I love Alex Nord. Oh my.
So
before Ulti-World, before all these things, I'll let you finish this. I was a big Alex Nord fan. I always wanted to play against him, and I never got to.
Well, that's your category. All I'm saying is I want to end this with a little history lesson that there is an early part of this league that there are just, again, names, no picture. Flamethrowers, they don't have a picture. It's just Alex Nord with a gray profile, whatever. And it says he played 11 games. He was a plus 19 in the league, whatever. But that's the thing. There was that generation who I'm glad, guys like Alex Nord, so that when future generations type in UFA, Alex Nord, at least they can see. And I think someday, the website and the league, we're going to beef it up. And hopefully the league can tell the story of, again, mid-2000s Ultimate that peeled into the mid-2010s. Because, I'm glad that a player like Alex Nord just got to tip his toe in the water, because that is an all-time legend in this sport, like a, no joke, top 15 all-time player in the sport of ultimate frisbee. And you were talking about the early 2000s. Yeah, that dude owned the skies for whether it was Seattle Sockeye or, again, Carlton Cut before that. Yeah, all-time player. So when I think Carlton Cut and when I think tall and great at ultimate, that Alex Nord is smiling somewhere.
Yeah, I loved Alex Nord. The footage that was available way back in the dark ages was very limited. But those highlight videos, I Bleed Black, where he beats Santa Barbara, just all those things. It was awesome. He was awesome, and yeah, it's nice that he got to play just that a little bit, so his name is in there. I think I saw an interview with him once where he just said, like, there was no footage, there was nothing. So, like, even just to be having a little bit of footage that when he played, hopefully it still exists, just like to show children or whatever. Like, it's cool that it's not just an Ulti Village DVD or something that you have to fire up on.
Well, it's actually CSTV back in the day. If you actually want to go back to that, CSTV. And I guess my last thing here is, as good as AI is getting to make all this weird slop and things that aren't real, why can't we put AI into just improving all our old sports highlights and digitally enhancing all those? Why can't we? I don't know. That's why I'm not in charge of anything, and I'm a host of an Empire podcast.
I'm actually shocked that I haven't used AI to make small videos of me just skying all my friends to send to them. You've opened up a whole can of worms here. I'm gonna have to think about this long and hard.
Well, yeah, it sounds like we both have work to do. And again, the Empire has some work to do on Sunday against Toronto. So we will see you back in New Rochelle and at Mount Vernon in a few weeks' time. But for Pippin and myself, we'll see you soon.
Oh, maybe an AI video of just all these Toronto Rush fans crying. I could get behind that too. Maybe that could be my new background.
Yeah, we'll have to see. All right, you get to work.